Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 582 on Tuesday, the 11th of June, 2024. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week we'll be discussing how expected consequences happen, and some are still shocked. In new car news, one manufacturer returns, but will anyone care? And in points of interest, the And finally welcomes back a delightful loon. But first, we have just one piece of follow-up this week. And it is the fact that JLR is really ramping up and accelerating their security rollout to deal with the problems they've had about people nabbing customers' cars who were not authorized to do so. They have now moved on to the models that were built after 2018 and up to the current range that have got the security in. And this includes out-of-warranty vehicles. Mm-hmm. And they are asking customers, if JLR have not been able to get in touch with them, to contact JLR so they can sort out this upgrade themselves quickly.
Mm-hmm. They've had over 160,000 vehicles already receive the upgrade. And Patrick McGillicuddy, the managing director of JLR UK, has said that he is personally committed to providing the highest standards of protection possible. Yes, people putting their names behind it. If you do have a 2018 and newer JLR product and it hasn't been looked at, now's a good chance to go get it looked at.
Yep. Okay. We're near the beginning of the month, still-ish.
We are. We just missed them by a day last week.
Well, SMMT have got to sort themselves out. I mean, they've changed the name of some of the charts to what we know, and they've changed the grading of cars and to what fuel you put in it. Now they just need to tie in with our schedule of publishing.
Yes, I know. I mean, we are truly car data influencers. How sad is that? That's awful. Anyway, new car registrations in the UK for May 2024 showed the 22nd consecutive month of growth with a whopping rounding error of 1.7%. Battery electric vehicle market share has risen to 17.6% in the month. Big notable thing here really is a drop in private registrations by 12.9%. Fleet, however, have made up for that with a 14% rise, and business is up a whopping 9.5%, or 290 vehicles. That gives you an idea of just how small business is relative to the other two. It is only a mere 2.3% of the market share. SMMT continues to say that they should reduce the VAT on battery electric vehicles, and obviously the far more sensible one of reducing the VAT on public EV charging to 5% instead of 20% to match home charging as well.
Yes, but I don't think that's in any way what we need to be realistic about this. Is 2024 wasn't even as much as 2021 was registered, which again, in turn, is nowhere near where it was in the before times.
Yes.
So there is a fundamental issue with the whole market. There is no slowdown in EV uptake.
No, this is true.
It is just not expanding as fast as some people may wish, or the government has mandated it needs it to be. That's very different from a slowdown. It's still increasing.
Absolutely, and I agree with you completely. I mean, battery electric vehicles up 10%, 9.7% year to date so far in the number of registrations. And comparing the 2 months from May 24 to May 23, still a rise of 6.2%. With plug-in hybrids, 31.5% up as well. The combination of those is very high. Hybrids, which is a proper hybrid, is up 9.6% too. The number of electrified vehicles is really rising very, very quickly when petrol as a sole motive power is down 2.1% and diesel, of course, down 16.7%, under 10,000 vehicles, diesel vehicles registered last month.
Yep.
In total, by the way, 147,678 vehicles were registered. Well, passenger vehicles were registered in May. Of those, the top 10 is, and I'm going to be fair here, a list of very possible, decent, but thoroughly uninteresting vehicles, really. I think we tried to pick out which ones we would be happy to own. And
they're
we
all
both
fine.
chose. They're all fine. There is nothing wrong with any of them. If you bought one of them and someone said, I've just bought a X, just got a new X or whatever, then I would go, oh, that's quite nice. Very good. Oh, I like that. I like the color. That's the kind of thing that would happen. Now we can go, wow, can I see it?
Yeah.
But it's pretty nice. In at number 10 with 2,468 registrations is the absolutely British built Nissan Juke. Number 9 is the Hyundai Tucson. Number 8 is the MG ZS. Number 7 is the Nissan Qashqai with 2,637. There are fewer than 200 registrations between numbers 10 and 7. There's 201 registrations between number 10 and number 6, which is the Volkswagen Polo. 5th is the Vauxhall Corsa. Again, only like 2 registrations more. That's how really close it is in this. This list, of course, we've got to remember, such as the stratification and diversification of ranges and model names, that there are so many of them, that the numbers per model are really quite low.
Yes.
4th, Volkswagen Golf. 3rd, finally breaking through the 3,000 registration mark, is the Audi A3. And then there is a significant step up to number 2, the Ford Puma, 3,812. And the most registered vehicle in the UK in May 2024, the Kia Sportage with 4,202 registrations.
Mm-hmm.
Spreadsheet of doom, Andrew.
Yes, I shall doom first, and I'll start with Alpine, down 46%, Bentley down 38%. Then we get to DS, which is down 73%. So last year that was 199 models, this year only 54. Fiat down 45%, Ford down 31%, Genesis down 45%, Ineos down 86%. That's just 25.
All the press vehicles are. I saw a load. There's a dealer on the far side of Boston, which is near all the good outdoor stores. And they've got quite a few on the forecourt there. Grenadiers.
No.
I should really go have a poke at it, but it's on the wrong side of the road.
We'll go the other way. Everything's on the wrong side of the road there. What are you talking about?
Thank you very much.
Maserati is down 47%. Maxus is down 67%. Right. Last year, 3. This year, 1. So you treat that with a bit of...
That's as good as the 26% increase in the team dealing with security at JLR. It's like 26. Okay.
Yes. Then we get to Polestar down 70%. Porsche is down 32%. Then Toyota's down 18%. Vauxhall is down 32%. And Other British is down 19.7%.
Can I ask a quick question about this? Because neither of them fall within our thresholds.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that SsangYong is listed on here and KGM is listed as well. And are they not the same things?
But I think it's just showing because of last year.
Okay.
Because they'll have had to do different names. Because they're not showing percentages, are
If
they?
anybody cares, KGM have registered 6 more vehicles this year than SsangYong registered in the same period last year. Done my maths right. Anyway, good news stuff. Quite interesting, given the number of reds in there and quite large drops in the numbers to see this area here. So Alfa Romeo up 110.81%. Are tonales and things starting to arrive in the UK, do we think?
Not sure.
Just trying to think of new Alfa models. Okay.
No, because they've only just
jump,
announced the pricing of the electric one.
Did I say Tonale? And Alfa, I meant Junior. No, Junior is the electric one here.
Yeah.
BMW up 29%. BYD up 2,738.1% with 596 vehicles registered instead of 21.
Yeah, congratulations on the MG Award.
Yes, the MG Award for ridiculous percentages. Cupra up almost 20%. GWM Aura, despite what we were saying last week about the cooling and demand and the consolidation centrally, up 206.06%. Honda up 18%. Jeep up 203%, 297 registered. It's about the number that get registered a day here in Massachusetts. Land Rover up 40%. Mercedes-Benz up 33%, Renault up 59%, Seat up 81%, Skoda up 16%, Smart up 825%. There's a lot of competition for the MG award, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Subaru up 35%, 182. That's the number a single dealership in Massachusetts registers each month, I'd say. And Volvo up 18%.
Yes.
I think I'm exaggerating with these Subaru cheap numbers, but I'm not 100% certain I am.
Before we just finish out this part of the show, do need to talk about salary sacrifice, because I've seen a lot of talk about it again, and some coming from a very prominent person who is very pro-EV.
By talk, you mean BS, don't you?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Just checking.
It's written complete nonsense, because they've claimed that salary sacrifice should be considered private registrations, and that's completely wrong, and demonstrates that the person involved knows nothing about what salary sacrifice actually involves. So tedious. So tedious. Salary sacrifice is, in effect, if you are taking advantage of it, you are leasing from your company that you work for. They are the ones that take a contribution from your disposable income in your salary and use that to pay for the vehicle. They also get a benefit in national insurance contributions. That changes. But ultimately, if you leave the company, you do not take the car with you. The car stays with the company and possibly the position. Depends on how they do these things. If you are sacked, you don't have a car to go with. If you decide to leave the company, they are on the hook for paying for the rest of that lease. Mm-hmm. So it is not a private sale at all, or a private registration. And we just need to stop saying that nonsense, because it's just utter garbage.
Absolutely.
Okay, I am now going to take us to Japan. There has been a continued fallout of the Daihatsu safety or the testing issues, because the regulators in Japan have asked other companies to investigate their results to make sure that nobody else has had issues where they've misreported information, or the process hasn't been followed, or they've falsified data. And it turns out that the regulator is now visiting Toyota, Honda, Mazda, and Yamaha Motors, because they feel that they have submitted incorrect or manipulated test data.
You can see the thinking there. It's like, right, we've caught this lot doing it. It's unlikely that this is unique. Let's go and look for the same thing in other places as well. And by the way, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all.
No.
Because it's kind of the right thing to do to stamp out the practice. This is not necessarily because they have been caught doing anything that has triggered an investigation. The investigation is coming along and going, now, like, show us your stuff. And the chances are that there will be things. I mean, they've discovered that for Toyota, there's 6 different tests conducted in 2014, 15, and 2020, and 3 production models, as well as some discontinued versions of 4 other models, have some issues here. The Corolla Fielder, not sold outside Japan. The Corolla Axio, not sold outside Japan. And the Yaris Cross, which is sold outside Japan, had some issues with it, with sort of collision damage sensors and these kind of things, although there is no safety impact. There is no known safety impact. This is in the tests, not actually saying that the vehicles are unsafe. So there is nothing wrong with driving your Yaris Cross if you have a Yaris Cross.
Or whatever models are involved with Honda and Mazda.
Yeah, Roadster RFs, Mazda 2s and things as well. They have some suspended shipments right at the minute too.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to take us to Germany?
Yes. Come in, Agent Sander. Your time is up. Ford of Europe boss Martin Sander has left Ford of Europe to become the sales and marketing boss at Volkswagen, according to the Autocar story that is linked in the show notes. Martin Sander joined Ford from Volkswagen and is returning to Volkswagen, and I'm sure this is absolute coincidence, just after Ford has started producing its new Explorer EV on a Volkswagen platform.
And there was the tie-in with the vans,
with the vans,
Tornios, and
the Tornios and the vans as well. So Ford have launched a range of Volkswagens, and now he's going back to Volkswagen.
Yes. By the way, to be really clear,
we are
not
tongue in cheek.
suggesting.
We are. This is absolutely tongue in cheek.
We just found the coincidence very funny and chose to go down that rabbit hole.
No, you chose to run with it. Yeah, I mean, he is ex Volkswagen and is going back again. It's interesting that Volkswagen is hiring someone from outside the company, even if they're former Volkswagen. It is unusual, given the way Volkswagen executives normally move around the table in the same old kind of way.
Well, for him to get out in the first place.
Well, yeah, that's first of all, you must escape.
Yeah. We need to stop now, otherwise we really are going to be in trouble, not just with Ford, but with Volkswagen as well.
Well, he only got out by digging a tunnel under a vaulting hole or something.
I know.
Yes. Right.
Okay. I am now going to leave that.
Let's move on from that story, I think.
Well, not so quickly. I'm going to hit the 20 mile an hour in Wales, actually. And it turns out the insurance company eSure have stated that following the introduction of 20 mile an hour limits in urban areas or built up areas, that they have seen a fall of 20% in the claims for vehicle damage following collisions. Now, they do go to make something clear, though, don't they, Alan?
They do. They do make it clear. And they said, well, the thing is that we wouldn't really have flagged this, but it's a reduction in the collisions during a period when we would expect there to be an increase. They have said it looks like it's more than just a coincidence. We're not just putting this out there because it's that. We're saying, look, it's since then there has been a reduce, and I love the fact that Rob Clark, the head of motor underwriting at eSure, is quoted in this Guardian article as saying the restriction is clearly having an impact. The article, of course, goes through and points out that 20 mile an hour zones are not always very well implemented. But it does seem to be more than just coincidence. And I think that's, I mean, on the other hand, it's not a great surprise. If you're going more slowly and you still have an accident, well, you'd hope that you're less likely to have an accident because you're going more slowly.
Yeah.
And also when you do have an accident, then the damage caused and the subsequent cost to repair is also less.
Yeah. And that obviously goes for any incidents that involve a collision with a person.
As well, yes. Also, no incidents are better than even a reduction.
Yep. Do you want to stick with insurance, though?
Not desperately. There's another story come out in the same kind of sphere talking about young people driving uninsured. Now, they're saying that there's a 118% increase in uninsured young drivers since 2021. And that is being blamed, quite frankly, on the premiums increasing by up to 77%.
Now, young drivers is 17 to 20-year-olds, by the way.
Yes, sorry, pardon me. It's 17 to 20-year-olds, and it is being published by road safety charity IAM Road Smart, who can turn any event into a news story when they try hard enough. But this one is, well, I've got to qualify the source somehow, I think.
Yes.
The increases have been ridiculous. QuoteZone, an insurance comparison site, is saying that since last year, 19-year-olds have seen their premiums increase by 47%. On average, £2,435. 18-year-olds, on average, 60% rise to 2,986%. I mean, I have a car which is sold and it's off the road, and its premium went up by a significant chunk. And I'm not a young driver. But, 17-year-olds, you start out and you go, okay, well, I can just about afford my insurance. And then it rises by 77% to an average of £3,496. Obviously, there is a significant disparity across the UK. London, significantly more expensive, or more than twice as expensive as, say, Northern Ireland, which is the cheapest.
Mm-hmm. I thought it's interesting because we will link to an Autocar article in the show notes, and they actually talk to a young chap who is busy trying to pass his test. So he's learning in a car that he's got, and he's insured it to learn in, and they've include how much it will rise once he passes. But he said that his cover is without a black box because he said that was too restrictive. And I'm going to quote here from him, from Josh Burford. He said, having a black box would save me between £500 and £1,000. But while it rightly penalises speeding, It also penalises cornering and braking beyond approved limits and driving after 9 p.m., which is unreasonable. Now, it's interesting to see people seeing that and noting it and going, nah, that's not on. You know, anyone who's listened to this show for a while has known I've banged on about this.
Yeah. And I know of one other journalist's daughter, and he was claiming that his daughter had crossed 100 miles an hour somewhere near him on 3 occasions in the month or something, and it's just not possible, just physically impossible. But they refused to accept that and were still adding a penalty.
Yeah, you don't know what the rules are or what they're working to, and they're just making it up off of binary inputs. That's not on.
No,
frankly,
absolutely not.
But at the end of the day, this will also go on, not just young drivers, but people who are on lower income, etc., that feel they need to drive. They feel they have no choice, i.e. they can't get to places or help people, whatever it is they need the car for. They will also stop paying for insurance because as it becomes more expensive, which then puts the premiums up even more, and the insurance industry can go, oh, look, we've got no choice.
I think there's, and I'm sure you agree with me, I think that there is a massive opportunity for a good investigation into the whole car insurance scheme, because it is becoming, whilst it's important, it's also something of a racket.
Yes.
Especially when it's controlled by a limited number of very large insurance companies. It's very difficult to sort of break free of those, despite the fact that there are many, many brands of insurance. And I think that there's time for a good hard look at some of these policies. I don't know if any politicians are going to be brave enough. Probably not. But I think that it would be worthwhile for the sake of people generally.
Yes. I think that brings us stumbling to the end of the first part, Alan.
Yes, very much hopping and skipping. Into Guilt Minute, the quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel the Motoring Podcast worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. The different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we do completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all that, and some of you do, so thank you very much, then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Thank you, everyone that does.
Absolutely. Andrew, the new ugly Kia.
Yes, new car news. We'll start with the BMW 1 Series. It looks astonishingly similar to a Kia PureSpeed at the front. I meant to do this, but I wanted to check whether there was a crossover of designers anytime.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Yes.
There is the new 1 Series, which you will see festooning the roads very soon, as because this is
where all the salary sacrifice and the PCPs will go.
Yes.
Which is what's going to come in the fleets. They expect an increase in the fleet numbers as everybody rolls over to their new one. I can't even say it's going to be a 118D because they don't do any diesel ones anymore. It's going to be a 118, isn't it?
Yeah. But my question here is BMW and Audi and Mercedes, because they have flooded the smaller car market.
Premium hatchback market, yeah.
Yeah. Considering how ubiquitous they are, at what point does that, because it doesn't seem to have done so far, does that affect their brands and premium? Because some of these are selling better than, what we would typically call the mainstream manufacturers.
In the UK, anyway.
Or is premium purely because of the perceived quality? And
I think it's the perception. I think that they lost that quite a long time ago. I mean, how long have I been making jokes about the Mercedes basically being the modern Renault Megane? And I know that it's a very tenuous link. Obviously, it's a very tenuous link. If you keep on down that thread, you can say, well, it's actually a Nissan Qashqai. But it's not. But I think it's the perception. I think it's the perception, not just of the vehicle, but also perhaps of the dealer experience and the ownership experience is in there as well as part of that brand. I think sometimes we just look at the cars and not at everything. I mean, otherwise, why would JLR be going down the whole boutique thing that they were going for? I think it's a really interesting point. I think they jumped that shark some time ago
Mm.
in the eyes of many car folk. I think we tend to be more picky about which models are still there. For example, we're going to link to an Evo article, and it talks pretty much exclusively about the M135, no I, which we'll come to shortly. And it talks all about that. And the price it gives at the bottom is for the M135, despite the fact that there's also, the M120, or just the 120, pardon me, as well. I think that there are, and same with the previous generation 1 series, I'd quite happily have an M135i X-Drive.
I'm not suggesting
but then
that it's a
I
bad
wouldn't have had a
product,
114,
but
But it's all to do with the spec, the level you're at. And I think that's where the premiumness bit comes in, as opposed to it's just a shopping cart for hairdressers who can get them through the company on a PCP.
And the aspiration to have that badge on outside your house, on your driveway, whatever it is.
Well, we've seen it before where you end up with a C-Class with steel wheels, but it's got a Mercedes badge.
Yeah. Well, anyway, sorry.
That was a fine tangent that I wasn't expecting there.
Sorry, yeah, it just... I've been wondering that for a while.
Mm.
In this Evo article that Alan said we're linking to, does discuss the M135 X-Drive, a bit similar to the 3 Series M that we were talking about last week. It's gone X-Drive. But also, interestingly, the I has dropped, and we're going to link to a second article because it is no longer the 135i.
Now, my parents had their first BMW when there still wasn't an I at the end of the smallest model. A 316, no I, because it was still carbureted.
Yeah, you'll get to find out why when you read the article from the Joy of Specs, as Keith Jones takes us through everything on how BMW have named their cars for quite some time, and other manufacturers as well. He does allude to what some of the others have done and then not done.
Mm.
But it's really fascinating history, actually. And he makes the great point in this is, why do it now? Because the point is the I is sticking with the electrified or the electric vehicles.
But it's on the front for the electric vehicles and it's at the back for the others. So it's perfectly ruddy clear. The other thing that BMW have been doing, I'm going to have a good old grumble here. One of the nice things is they've moved for ages. For the last few years, BMW have been trying to force everyone to describe things as not the 3 Series, the 5 Series, and the 7 Series, but the 3, the 5, and the 7, with no series after it. And they've given up on that. Even on their own website, they've now given up on that, and they put series. What they are doing now, and I've noticed this on the new 5 that I've seen around the place over here, is that the 5 is bigger than the engine size, and the 1 is bigger on these. The 1, it's an M135.
It just feels unnecessary, but at the end of the day, does it matter really? And this is me saying it, who gets really bent out of shape over little things?
It's going to be me. It's like, I believe that Mercedes went downhill once they moved the letter from the end of the name, the end of the model designation, to the start.
Is that your demarcation?
Yeah. So for me, if it's a 320, if it's a 320e, it is immediately better and cooler than an E320. Yeah. There is partly it's aesthetics, but it's also just generally, I feel that marked the point when Mercedes quality started to decline. It's very silly, but it's similar that all the best, in my mind, all the best BMWs came when they'd introduced the I at the end. And I know it's not when they introduced, but when it became commonplace across the entire range. So the E30 was launched with just the 316 engine and then introduced the 318i and the 316i. And then that was like the golden age of 3 Series, partly because, at the time my father worked for a BMW dealership. We had an ever-changing selection of E30s on the drive. And it's that kind of thing. It is purely psychological because I'm a boring middle-aged man. So what it boils down to, I get irrationally... I've spent a lot of time naming products over the years and naming stuff and words, and they're important and all these kinds of things. Other than this, I spend a lot of time debating the exact meanings of words. with big companies, and I believe it's important, and it goes right the way down, and it's totally me, but it goes right the way down to model names and designations, and how that seems to be, in my mind, it dictates eras of vehicles in brands. And I shall now stop wittering.
I can see
because
that.
That's a lot of waffle.
Just dashing quickly back to the M135, it's lost a tiny bit of power, so it's going to be slightly slower to 0 to 62. But they have decided that they will transform and improve the dynamics of it. So whilst it might not quite be as quick as the outgoing model, it should be much better to drive.
It also gains a 7-speed DSG gearbox as opposed to the 8-speed auto that it had previously.
Mm-hmm. And prices on the road, because the end of this article doesn't go into this detail. It seems to skip that little bit. But prices on the road, as we checked this morning, on the day of recording on BMW's own website in the UK, that is £43,000 on the road price.
Because some of us need to get out more.
Okay, Alan. Talking of things that are getting out a bit more now.
I'm sorry, it's me again. It's me again. Sorry, folks. Cadillac. Cadillac is looking to get out, not from just being in the North American market. And it has confirmed that it's returning to the UK this year with the launch of the Optiq EV. That's Optiq with a Q. Yeah.
Of course.
But, well, it's a big thing with Cadillac at the minute. It seems to be ending stuff with Qs and no Us. Yes, it is a mid-sized SUV. It's the second model in their electrified range because they also have the...
Lyric.
The what?
Lyric.
Oh, there's the Lyric as well. Yes, pardon me.
Or Lyric. Yeah, that's the bigger one.
Yes, there is the Lyric. There's the other weird-looking one. Maybe that's not EV.
No, that's not. No, it's only the Lyric and the Optiq.
Okay, well, they're perfectly good-looking. No, they are good-looking vehicles. Actually, do you know what? The Cadillac range right at the minute is really phenomenally good-looking. It is the best-looking of all of the GM models that I see on the road around here. The one exception being the Suburban, which just looks too tall, which is weird. The GMC and Chevrolet versions look so much better. You're looking at me as if I've lost it now.
Well, it's not offensive, is what I'll say with the picture that we've got on the EV-powered article that's linked in
It's about 15 centimeters or 6 inches shorter than a BMW, than the Lyric, which is sizes with a BMW iX, which is big and bloated, to be honest. Optiq 2-motor all-wheel drive powertrain, 300 horsepower, 354 pound-foot of torque. Nothing ridiculous, perfectly reasonable. And the outside is kind of good looking, as I've said. I've kind of alluded to that. And it looks good. I don't think it's standing out miles from anything else.
But you look at the competition they're aiming for. They're aiming for the Audi Q4 e-tron, the Tesla Model Y, the BMW iX3. I think anyone would struggle to claim they are good-looking cars.
Yeah, no, they're not. But where it does win and where its sort of USPs are, I think, is the interior. The interior is really kind of nice. It looks, and I'm going to say, it's really kind of nice. It looks a bit Stellantis-ish in that it has, it has a wide screen that goes across. It has a row of buttons underneath that in the middle. Maybe the steering wheel has a few too many buttons if we're being really picky. But beyond that, we're into dark wood, we're into leather, and we're into nice sort of aluminium textures and stuff. It's very, something I say quite often, American luxury in there. And I think that that's going to be its USP. The challenge is, though, that the marketing, the models certainly that are sold here in the US, include two different levels of sport. There's Luxury 1, Luxury 2, Sport 1, and Sport 2. What this needs is to sell on the luxury in Europe, not on the sport, because all the others can sell on the sport. But you don't really go to Cadillac for a sports car.
Yeah, but they seem to be going for the sport because they're targeting, it says in this article, they're targeting younger buyers, claiming it adds sporty and youthful
doomed then.
Adds a sporty and youthful persona to the brand's range. The thing is, though, I wonder how many people, one, will care about Cadillac, because it's been, if you mention Cadillac now, then people will think of 1950s and 60s big barges, won't they? they won't think of anything modern.
Not CTSV.
Really,
then.
unless they're a car nerd.
Yeah.
And to get someone out of their Audi or their Tesla or their BMW, that's going to be a big ask.
You've got to be some kind of weirdo like me who wants something different.
And on top of all of that, we go back to as we do with any of the new brands, if they're re-entering market or first time here, where are you servicing it? Who's looking after it?
That's true, because they can't just use Vauxhall dealers anymore.
Now we know because it's being mentioned. What about the insurance side of things? Have you got all that lined up? Because that's costing some manufacturers who've come over here big time, because customers can't get insured because they haven't sorted out the servicing, the repair and all that stuff. It's not easy coming into a market, and I don't know if they're a bit too late.
Requires an entire system. But do you think this is going to go a little bit Infinity? Because Infinity never really had, and I say this as an owner, so experience of this, Infinity never really had the entire darn system. You know, I love doing Corby, and really I could either go to Birmingham or Reading to get it serviced.
Well, that's what I fear is going to happen here, and I fear it's dead in the water before it's come over here. Because I at SMMT, I talked to one Chinese manufacturer, and they explained how they have worked to make sure all the infrastructure, as in dealers, parts, they've worked with Thatcham to train people on how to repair. All that stuff has been done, so the insurance companies are happier. How they've done all that, Cadillac is going to have to do that, as well as do this huge marketing campaign to bring brand awareness.
It's going to be interesting how they do that, because, as I said, they can't just use Vauxhall anymore.
No.
You know, it's probably going to be let's see what. Let's not be completely negative on this, but let's see.
These are the problems they have to overcome. This is the challenge they've got. It's all well and good saying we're going to bring one of our flagship models across, and we think you'll love it. But there's a hell of a lot of work they've got to do.
Yes, absolutely.
On top of it.
Can I just add a quick addendum based on a line in this article on evpower.co.uk by Matt Allen, which is the Jeep Wagoneer we talked about last week, and I said, yeah, because the current Wagoneer models don't have Jeep branding on them. I just wanted to confirm that I was correct on that. I have since seen Wagoneers and Grand Wagoneers, and I have walked right around them to see how much Jeep branding there is, just to make sure I was right, because I made a statement saying it's the first Wagoneer that actually says Jeep on it, and of the current Wagoneers, and yes, I was correct. I would have said if I was wrong as well, by the way. Last but not least, Andrew, tell us about the new car from Mercedes.
Mercedes-AMG have a new concept called PureSpeed. And, oh dear. This was unveiled at the Monaco Grand Prix a few weeks ago.
It sounds like a third-rate energy drink.
One that's slightly better than sponsoring entire race series, but this is the first model in the Mercedes-AMG bespoke Mythos range. This is an AMG SL that has been
chopped,
heavily changed, as in there is no windscreen, there are buttresses behind the driver and passenger, and there is a F1-inspired halo device.
All of which conspires in the pictures to make it look like a rather large and fat version of the Auto Bianchi Runabout, which is a Bertone concept car we've talked about not so long ago, and you can buy it as a Hot Wheels car from 1970, and it was the inspiration for the X19, as I'm sure some will point out. But that's what it looks like. It's that sort of roadster thing, and then it's got this sort of slanty roll bar at the back. But then this, of course, has a sort of halo-ish bit in between, so you can bump your head on it, but you'll be wearing a helmet anyway.
And block the view of the driver. You know how you're not supposed to put your phone in the middle of the windscreen?
Don't put... Well, if there's it gets around the problem by not having a windscreen, but yeah.
Yes, quite. I'm also getting, in certain angles, I'm getting vibes of a stretched-out MX-5 as well.
There was a Mazda concept a few years ago that was very similar to that roadster based on an NC MX-5. Yes, it's to do with that kind of bluff front, I think, that there is on this, where they've sort of lowered the grille right down, and it's just a sort of keeping hole across the bottom, a bit like an N. And the way the badge, the lights, and the bonnet shut line are, it looks a lot like an NCMX5. I hadn't noticed that until you said it, actually.
Yeah. Well, don't expect to see many of these on the roads. This is there's going to be 250 specially selected customers who will get the bespoke treatment, and it will cost them an awful lot of money, I would imagine, because they will want to dictate every single detail, and that's where they're hoping to make their money from.
At least one or two of them will then bounce it onto the used car market for twice what they paid for it. So, anyway, points of interest this week, and I'll take us straight into it with the lunchtime read, and it's from TechCrunch. TechCrunch, I really like what TechCrunch are doing in the automotive space, because they actually have dedicated EV motoring journalists. Now they actually have people for that, specific editors for it to focus on it. So you don't get people who spend their time writing about televisions trying to then tell you all about a new car. And yeah, well, it's true.
Yes.
It's true.
No, you're right. It's something we discussed, wasn't it? It was 2 or 3 shows ago,
a while ago,
about how not to cover the stuff in the future.
Yeah,
please.
I think it works the opposite way around. Motoring journalists and the tech stuff can get a bit guddled up. So it's nice to see someone focusing on the crossover. This is by Sean O'Kane, and it's about inside the EV startup, FISKER'S collapse, how the company crumbled under its founders' whims. It's a relatively long read, so I'm not going to go through it, but it tells the story and some of the views from inside about what happened inside Fisker and how it got to the position that it is currently in. My outcome of this really is just saying, well, Henrik Fisker, you've had you're an excellent designer, but please don't ever try and start up a company again. I think you should stay in design studio, mate. Let people who can run
business acumen is not there.
It is absolutely
clearly,
not.
Especially if you read what happens. Yeah. My word.
So have a good old read of that one. I was saying to Andrea before we started recording today that I actually saw a Fisker Ocean at the weekend. Woo! There's me seeing my one of those, I think. It's a shame. Good looking thing.
Yep. I'm going to take us onto the list of the week, and it comes from Autocar, and it is a slideshow, and it is titled Never Dull, The Car Designs of Chris Bangle. Now, we have encountered another problem with the slideshows. So what we are recommending is that if you click the red button in the slideshow that's embedded in the picture,
it works
then
beautifully.
It becomes as a pop-out, and then it works fine. Do that. Okay, now we've got the admin out the way, Alan.
Yes, we have.
Chris Bangle, famous for bringing in the new design at BMW that caused everyone to go up in arms.
Yes.
But then now we all look back, or many look back and go, actually,
well, no, I think
good, isn't it?
Well, there was some better than others. But yeah, there's some great stuff in there. My choice is the Gina. It was a concept car it was very early. Supposedly it was kept under wraps for a long, long time and was never shown to the public because it might have just been too radical. But it essentially showed where some of the shapes that we later saw in things like the Z4 with that scalloped side and that round indicator, where some of those forms came from. And it was originally from 2008. There we go, the Gina concept. It was originally called the Gina Light Visionary Model. But what was really cool about it is the skin was all a kind of metallicized cloth, which is how they got the shapes, which then ultimately worked their way through to actual models. Very cool. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I like it so much is I have actually seen it in the flesh. It was years ago, it was in the BMW showroom just off the Champs-Élysées in Paris. One time I was stalking cars around the Champs-Élysées, and it was just there in the window, and I was kind of surprised, to be honest. But but yeah, very, very cool.
Mm. Well, I like the Opel Junior from 1983.
We talked about that not so long ago.
He worked on the interior, and what's struck me, apart from the really quite interesting way that he's played around with fabrics and coverings and things like that, but if you look at the dashboard, is made up of pods with individual instrument information in them. That is exactly what we're doing today with screens. We are trying to compartmentalize certain bits of information to certain parts of the dashboard. I mean, I don't know, because I don't have a picture that's close enough, but I would imagine that the stuff in front of the passenger is for the passenger.
I would imagine it's like the clock and all sorts of stuff like that.
Which is what we're getting now in these, with the screens are being thrown at everything, is there is stuff that is being done deliberately for the front passenger, not the driver.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well ahead of its time. Super ahead of its time.
Yeah. I love all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I miss the more whimsical concept cars. It is always a shame when all we see is basically the next production model with tiny wing mirrors and no door handles and big wheels.
Yeah,
but
I love them experimenting with a thought.
Yes, this is so 1980s. I mean, it really is. It's got a real whiff of Sony's Walkman Sport and stuff like that about it.
Habitat catalog.
Yes, yeah. That's absolutely it. Absolutely it. Yeah, very cool.
Okay, well then, Alan, that just leaves us with the and finally.
Yes, the and finally this week is a revisit to C90 Adventures on YouTube. We talked before about Ed's adventure across Utah, and he's off again with his little mini Jeep. This is episode 1 of Whether It Make It to Area 51, and there's quite a lot about the work that has gone into modifying the Jeep, let's say, compared to before. So it actually has maybe a little bit of comfort and possibly some traction and things like that. I'm interested to see what happens with this. It's going to be really cool. Yeah, I've seen it, and saw the mini Jeep before this came out in the background of at least one Matt's Off-Road Recovery video. It was just kind of sitting there. I thought, that looks familiar, knowing that they were in the same kind of part of the country. But to go, usual combination of really bad humor and
bad singing
and awful singing. It makes me feel good. But yeah, definitely worth. I mean, this first episode is 41 minutes of your time. If you missed it before, he did 1,000 miles off road in his mini Jeep about a year ago, and so it's all rather good.
Yep, do love someone who is basically an adventurer in and daft with it. Not in is trying to endanger themselves, but it's just it's a daft idea, and they've gone with it.
Yes, and thus far, unlike TV adventurers, you know that there's no hotel roundabout, and at no point has he felt obliged to drink his own bodily fluid. So there's a win as far as I'm concerned.
And he's not manufacturing drama, and it's what happens is what we're getting.
Yeah, really good. Go subscribe. Don't forget to like and subscribe, everyone. And you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube as well if you want the audio version of the show. It comes out on there every week, and you can get that on your phone stuff via either the YouTube app or via YouTube Podcast app. Is that quite a nice little say? I'm quite proud of how I segued into some flogging stuff. Anyway, which brings me, I'm just going to end the show now. So don't forget, everyone, that between now and next week, you can give us any feedback and share your thoughts for the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is search for Crack Windscreen on Mastodon or Twitter. And if you would like something vaguely a bit more professional than my angry rantings, then you can try and find me on LinkedIn, where I go by my normal name.
Everybody else does angry rantings on LinkedIn, as far as I can tell, so I don't see why you shouldn't.
Well, I just couch the language slightly different.
Oh, right, okay.
So, Alan, if people would like to get in touch with you and congratulate you on how you can segue wonderfully off the cuff, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can do it on LinkedIn if you really want, but I wouldn't bother. Best of all is Twitter, or basically any of the social medias used by people over 35, where I am at AJP Bradley. That's Bradley. We'll be back very soon, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.